Hello and welcome to the Cosmic Nomad. I'm your host, Bailey Rushlow, and this is a space for the curious and the heart-led, where we explore the human experience through travel, nature, spirituality, and real-life transformation through beautiful conversations. As I discover my way of living what I call an inspired life, I share the practices, stories, and perspectives that have helped guide me back to myself. In today's episode, I am sharing the moment everything changed for me. This is the story of an ending, a becoming, and a remembering. So please do whatever you need to make yourself comfortable. Pull up a chair, take a walk, put on some headphones, get a cozy drink, and let's get into it. It's a Tuesday when you're listening to this, but I'm actually recording it on a Sunday. I woke up this morning bright and early, sunshine streaming through my window. I'm so happy about that because right now the sun and earth are in a particular lineup where the sun comes pouring through this little space in the window. And like half the year it's not doing that. So right now the fact that it is and I can wake up with sunlight in my eyes is incredible because not only is it amazing for your hormones, it also just makes me wake up happier. I mean, I feel like I usually wake up happy, but it really puts me in a good mood and gives me like an extra pep in my step for starting the day. So I made my way to the market this morning and picked up lots of fresh fruits and vegetables for my week because I am about to start my bleed and I like when everything is prepared and ready for me in advance to have a very peaceful week. I got some fresh herbs as well, and I set those up when I got home in oil and in alcohol to make tinctures and salves with. Made myself a great breakfast, cleaned the kitchen, and now I'm sitting here on my floor bed in my studio with my cat next to me. And I had an amazing walk home from the market because all of the flowers are in bloom right now. And just being able to stop and smell each one and say hi to each one, it's a whole ritual for me. And the reason that is because I love romanticizing my life. I'm a deeply curious person. I love all of the things that we usually forget to look at, and also the things that we are told not to look at, which has been a very consistent theme through my life. I'm very drawn into things like esoteric wisdom and studying other religions and indigenous practices and beliefs around the world, hidden and forgotten history, herbalism and plant medicine, psychedelics, sex, death, rebirth. I want to know all the things about all the things where we are told not to look because it's shadowy and it's kind of just taboo a lot of the time. And it's interesting because those things to me are like the most important things in the whole world. And yet they're uncomfortable when we bring them up to people. If I'm like, hey, let's talk about, death. People are like, what? I'm like, you don't think about death every day? That's just me. Like, I love the duality of the light and the dark and how you can't know one without knowing the other. You can't just live in this love and light place without having descended into your shadow, into the things that scare you, into the fears, and bring love to them and bring light to them and be like, oh wow, you're a part of me too. This is not a part of me that is exiled any longer. It's a part of me that is reclaimed and is loved and is a part of the whole. And so I want to talk about that journey of how I got to that place because it has been a process and a beautiful evolution. So growing up, I was raised in a small town in the Bible Belt in the south of the US. A very beautiful town with rolling green hills and white picket fences. And I didn't know anyone that didn't believe exactly the way that I did. Everyone that I knew was evangelical Christian. 99% of the people I knew were white. 0% of them were openly gay. And everyone was conservative. Like, I never met people with different political views than my parents. I never met people who had traveled to different countries unless it was on a missions trip. Basically, everyone that I knew was very similar to me. I'm the oldest of my siblings, and so I feel like I was the golden child in a lot of ways, of being the firstborn, being naturally pretty gifted at things that I was interested in as a child, whether it was the arts, singing, dancing, theater, painting, art classes, you name it, I was in it. And a lot of those memories and experiences were so good for me because they got me out of my comfort zone. I loved performing. And at the same time, it kind of instilled this limiting belief in me that I have to perform to be loved, that I can be who you want me to be in order to keep myself safe, in order to feel loved and accepted and like I wouldn't be abandoned. So essentially, I learned a coping mechanism of abandoning myself so that I wouldn't be abandoned by anyone else. And those were some of my biggest wounds, I would say. My core wounds would be the fear of being separate from love. And I think that goes for a lot of humanity, especially when we're taught that there's a God who will either condemn you or accept you, judge you or love you. It's interesting to me to look back at the timeline of my life and see when things really started shifting. And in 2018, I experienced a heartbreak that set me on this trajectory of starting to ask more questions. I was done doing things the way that I had always done them. I was done believing the things I had always believed. And I started to notice my programming for the first time. I started to get more curious about the mind, about psychology, about the body, also about the cycle in my own body, the cycle of my womb, the cycle of my blood, the cycle of my being in connection to nature, the cycle of my being in connection to the moon, in connection to the tides, in connection to the trees and the land around me. I've really started being like, wait a second, what if there's more? What if there's more than what I've been told? What if there's more than what the Bible says? What if there's more than what my parents believe? What is this in me that is no longer content with just accepting things the way they are? And I started to notice the judgment within myself toward myself and toward other people around me, the hypocrisy, the lack of understanding, the lack of empathy, unless you believed the way that I did. And I love that about myself. I love that transformation. And it's been a beautiful reclamation of self and a journey that no one can teach you how to do. It really is one that you are on your own path on. And the people who have been there understand what I'm saying, because it can be very, very lonely. But also, I know myself now better than I ever have before. I understand what makes me work. I understand what makes my spirit feel alive. And I understand why I'm here. And what's funny is, if you had asked me years ago, Bailey, why are you here? I would have said, to bring glory to God. That was my identity. I have it tattooed on my arm. I also would have said a purpose of mine would have been converting other people that were not Christian before into Christianity, to be a part of my religion, and that one of my main life purposes is to be a good Christian mom after finding a like-minded, equally yoked Christian man to do my life with and to raise Christian children. This was my purpose. I didn't even have any ideas of what it would be outside of that. And just to be clear, If any of those things that I used to want are things that you currently want, that's amazing. You found something that fits you, that feels authentic, that feels aligned. For me, it simply didn't. And in no way am I belittling that or dissing that. It's just that I don't think it's a one size fits all mold. And growing up, that literally was the only path that I could see for myself. It was the only place that I saw and found purpose. And I discovered that I am so much more than these external projections of who I should be or how I should act or who I represent, right? It's just interesting to me looking at it now and realizing all the reasons why I have been scared to speak up for who I am, for the journey that I've been on. And I think losing friends along the way has made that very complicated because I had to get used to being misunderstood very quickly. And that included losing one of my best friends in the world to our difference in beliefs. That included having friends from back home, from my evangelical Christian days, calling me and telling me that I'm going to hell for the things I believe. It included being questioned over and over and over again by people who could not see me. And I understand now that really it's because it's all a reflection, and it's a reflection of what they can't see in themselves. Like there's a quote that says, "We don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are." The same thing. We don't see people as they are. We see them as we are. We are seeing everything through our own lens of perspective, which means that everything around us is a reflection of us, right? People cannot see in you what they cannot see and accept about themselves. So it usually makes you incredibly triggering. And if I really believe that and can actually hold that truth as something that's lighting my path, then I have no fear of speaking what my experience is into the world, because it's my experience. They cannot tell me it did or didn't happen, or it is or isn't true. So much of my life has been discovering who I am as an alchemist, someone who understands how to turn something into something else. For example, how to understand trauma and watch it transform into awareness and understanding and empathy and boundaries. Another example would be discovering the connection between the practical and the spiritual, the mundane and the magical, and how they are so deeply and divinely interwoven in my life. If you've followed me for a while, you've probably seen in a lot of my bios the phrase, "I'm a student of the universe." And I love this concept because it reminds me that I'm never done growing. I'm never done evolving. I'm never done changing. I never have it all figured out. I never have the answers for every question. That's why I have to continue questioning and wondering. And in the words of Tolkien, not all who wonder are lost, right? We are simply on an adventure. And to me, that is the whole point of why I'm here. I'm reminded of this poem by Walt Whitman when he's asking about the questions and about life and about what are we doing, what are we doing? And he says the answer is that you are here, that life exists and identity, that the powerful play goes on and you may contribute a verse. I've quoted this many times throughout my life and told this quote to many people because it feels so grounding, so personal, like someone whispering in your ear a reminder of who you are. And I think that's something that is a key reason as to why I didn't do this podcast years ago. I wasn't there yet. You know, this is the time. that it's happening in my journey of vocal liberation, in my journey of living an inspired life. And I love saying that because to me, when you break down words, you can see the meaning of them. So inspired literally translates to in spirit, and in spirit is connected to yourself, connected to your intuition, connected to your soul, because that is truly embodying the fullness of the human experience. And to me, that's everything. I have a tattoo on my arm that says feel it all, and it's a permanent reminder to me that I always go back to. That's why it's on my body. So that I can remember that I am here on this planet, in this body, in this moment, as this soul having this experience, right? To feel everything, the highs and the lows, the in-betweens, to truly paint with the full spectrum of colors in this life, in this experience as Bailey. And the last few years, as I've really worked on embodying those concepts on a deeper cellular level, it has truly transformed the way I see the world. And a large part of that is due to my endless curiosity, which for many years, as a child, I really leaned into. I was deeply curious, probably 4 or 5 years old, asking questions that were really hard to answer about, the cosmos and God and the sky and, how things worked, and really wanting to understand things. And a lot of the time, the answers were just kind of like, well, it just is, or you just have to have faith that it exists, or it's just because that's what we learn. It wasn't really explained a lot of the time. And I think I realized adults kind of know like everything, but nothing at the same time. Like they're not curious anymore. And I didn't understand why. But as I grew up, I, started to succumb to the programming that we all do in our society of being good, of doing good, of looking good, of behaving, of following the rules, following the guidelines. And if you do that, then, you receive love, you receive attention, you receive validation. And I think there isn't one person I've ever met who has not struggled with that at some point in your life, whether it was from family, from their own subconscious beliefs, from their church, school, religion, peer pressure, friends, etc. And it's often this cultural conditioning that keeps us very stuck in old mindsets that have been passed down through generations, survival mechanisms, things that keep us safe, as opposed to pushing us to expand into the fullest version of ourselves. I'm reminded of the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once. Incredible movie. If you've seen it, you know. If you haven't, I highly encourage you to watch it. But I'm reminded of the scenes where the main character is getting ready to change into a new timeline, to like a new version of herself. And in order to do that, she has to do something uncomfortable. She has to do something a little weird. And it's different every time. It's not the same motion or the same action or something that gets her there. It's always different. And I find that fascinating because I think it's so applicable to our own lives. Like it's a fantastic analogy, because we really do have to do something weird to get ourselves to move. And why we have to do something weird is because we have to disrupt the pattern of what we normally would do. We have to disrupt our conditioning. And the breakup for me in 2018 that I referenced earlier was a huge pattern disrupt for me, massive. Woke me up to all kinds of things inside myself that I was not seeing, that I couldn't see, that I didn't want to see. And this was the time when I first started really understanding and being fascinated by trauma, the brain, the mind-body connection. I found myself studying tools like the Enneagram and meditation, astrology, all of which supported me in the journey of wanting to do things different. Like the definition of insanity, right, is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And I had gotten to the point of
complete frustration with how things were going in my life. And I was like, all right, if I want to see a change, I'm going to have to change the way that I'm looking at my life and the way I am interacting with my life. And these tools were massively helpful in encouraging me to take those initial steps. And I took that next year and like healed so much, and I grieved so much, and I moved forward, and I continued creating and found myself in this very, very different headspace than I had been even just a year before. And I did the second weird thing, which was book a flight across an ocean by myself for the first time, traveling solo, not in America. And I went to Scotland,
which I talked about in episode 1 that was so transformative to me. And
one of the most revolutionary things about my Scotland journey was being alone for like a month. It was the first time I've ever truly been by myself. The rest of the time, I was very involved in my family life, taking care of people, taking care of siblings, taking care of parents. That being really alone was something I did not know what to do with, but it felt so good. And it made space for me to accept stillness, slowness, my grief, my desires, who I was and who I no longer wanted to be. Like I could feel it all coming to the surface in a way that I hadn't before, because I was packing my time full of things that had to do with everyone else. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity that I got to learn this lesson early, because it has been an integral part of how I have lived my life since then, realizing that I really do need a lot of time, like by myself. I love to spend time with my partner. I love to spend time with my friends. I love to go to parties. I love to do things with people, but also like the time that I have with myself, like really realizing I am my longest relationship. So I will be with myself for the rest of my life. That's the only thing that really matters at the end of the day is, do I like myself? Am I friends with myself? And Scotland gave me that gift. And I came home from that trip like romanced, in absolute love with this new place, with this not only new country and location and peoples, but like with myself there in this energy, in this flow. And I was like, yes, this is where I want to be. I'm going to move there. I am straight up going to pack my bags, sell everything I don't need, get some big ass suitcases and fill them with the things I want to start a new life with, get rid of everything else, get an apartment, which I did, book a flight, which I did. And I was like, I'm going to be home for a few more months with my dad's house, and then I'm going. I am gone. You will see me no more. I was like, this is my big break. This is my movie moment. This is my eat, pray, love, right? I was like, we're going. And it felt like it was the biggest choice I'd ever made for myself until that point of like, I am cutting all the cords and I'm moving forward into who I want to be, into this life I want to live. I could visualize, I could taste it. It was so clear. And several months later, 1 month before I was supposed to fly out, the borders closed to the US because of the pandemic. And I sat in the floor of this bedroom that was nearly empty with my suitcases and my piano, and I cried. And I felt like I could feel like I knew that this dream was too good to be true. Like it revealed some very deep limiting beliefs about myself that if I really dreamed as big as I wanted to, it would fall apart. That there was still some lack mentality there, some scarcity mentality, some belief that I didn't actually deserve what I truly wanted. And this came hand in hand with trying to navigate my emotions around the wreckage of not only my dreams and my freedom, but also what was left of my family after my parents' divorce. Trying to navigate a newly estranged relationship with my mom, as well as the just collective fear and discomfort of the pandemic, among so many other things. And this was a really fascinating point in my life because it was the first time that I actually decided I was going to go to therapy. And before this, I had considered it, but I felt a little bit of resistance toward it because I thought that it somehow meant that I was weak and couldn't do it by myself. And I don't know what that would have said about my relationship with God, if I had to have someone else help me because he was supposed to be there with me through all this stuff. And it was his plan that I would go through all this hardship. And I didn't want to be that person that was like, oh, well, my therapist said, right? So I had all of these fears and preconceived ideas about what this experience would be. Little did I know, going was a huge turning point for me, and meeting this incredible woman named Beth, 5-foot Japanese woman, granddaughter of a samurai warrior, who literally gave me the greatest gift, which was affirming that how I felt was valid. It's so simple. That's truly what I needed. And I think we spend so much time gaslighting ourselves into thinking that how we feel maybe isn't really how we feel or how we should feel. And then we never get to the root of the issue, and we continue perpetuating the same patterns in other relationships and in other things with ourselves. And my therapist gave me this space at that time to grieve the loss of this new life I thought I was birthing, and to grieve my family that had kind of fallen to pieces, and to identify my deep core wounds of being abandoned, being a parentified child. And she got me into attachment styles and the Enneagram. I mean, we went deep and it was a huge turning point for me. And I'll be forever grateful to her for that experience of being one-on-one with someone that can really look at you, see you, acknowledge you, and validate exactly where you are, is where you're supposed to be. And making peace with that felt nearly impossible. It made room for many, many of my shadows to come to the surface, and there was a lot to process that I had specifically pushed down deep, deep, deep into myself, hoping to never have to go through or see again. And that led me to months of listening to podcasts, audiobooks, walking outside barefoot in the grass for miles in the fields, looking at butterflies and insects and rocks. And like, when I say I fully embraced my inner child in this time, I did. And was why it was such a huge gift to me, was having these months of, although unknown and frustrating and confusing and full of so much grief, they also held this special spark of magic that I have been carrying with me since then. And it started in Scotland, and then it continued through this weird pandemic time, and to the point where I did my next weird thing, which was to book a completely random, unplanned flight that left the next morning at 4 a.m. with my backpack for a week to Mexico to have a reset, which turned into one of the greatest adventures and love stories that I have ever experienced. Came here for 1 week thinking I'm going to just embrace this beautiful culture. I'm going to lay by the beach. I'm going to get massaged. I'm going to eat tacos. I'm going to be in the sun. And then I'll come back and I'll see what's next for me. And I canceled my return flight home after a week and decided to stay for a month. And I watched every sunrise. I watched every sunset. I did yoga. I laid on the sand for hours. I read books for hours. I met new people. I sat on the beach and watched the full moon rise while drinking mate with my Argentinian friends that were speaking in Spanglish together. And I mean, it was the stuff of dreams, truly. It became this adventure that I found myself on that was completely unexpected, like left field, came out of nowhere. And I found myself living this new life that I couldn't believe. I was like, wait a second. No, like my life is in Nashville. Like my life was maybe in Scotland, but not here. Like this is a vacation. Like it was wild, but I was living this life that felt so aligned with me before I never even planned it. Like it's like it found me. And it felt so fluid and free and refreshing, easy. And within the first couple of weeks being here, I saw an incredible man on the beach. And we started talking, and it's a whole story that I'll probably save for another episode. But I tell people that we started hanging out and we really never stopped. We have an incredibly, radically honest, healthy communication, secure attachment relationship that feels so incredibly safe, grounded, and also very expansive, and allowing me to be the fullest and most expressive version of myself, and for him as well. And it's a very beautiful balance, and I'm so grateful to have created this dynamic with another soul in this journey. It feels like a beautiful gift to experience, truly. And one thing I will say is I did not come into this relationship with a bunch of shit figured out. Like, I was very unsure of where I stood with my journey with Christianity, with my evangelical upbringing. I was in the middle of uprooting all of the beliefs that I carry around literally everything, from my politics to my mind, my body, my beliefs around sexuality, and how it is a spectrum, and how I am totally bisexual and have been for a long time. And understanding that I can be fully myself in a relationship. I don't have to chameleon to what you want and who you want me to be, but I can be loved for being exactly who I am in my own skin. Oh my God, like the transformation that happens in that space. I used to think that I had to come into a relationship fully healed from all of my stuff, that I needed to be like this perfect, flower, like ready for this man. So old school, patriarchal. Ugh, I hate even thinking that I thought that, but I did. And now I look at it and go, oh, wow. No, when you have a secure and healthy attachment and you're with someone that wants to see you grow and see you become the most expansive version of yourself, that is something life-changing and transformative. And being able to just figure that stuff out together can be an amazingly beautiful and bonding journey. So I can definitely speak more to that in future episodes, but it's funny how much you change when you see travel as just, an experience you do, maybe like once in a while you go somewhere, maybe a resort, maybe a ski trip, which is like so awesome. Please continue doing that. But also it's a very different experience when you see travel as a lifestyle, and it becomes your education. It becomes your playground, and it becomes your catalyst for expansion. And that is one of those things that I would say has disrupted my patterning and my programming more than anything in this world. And I am not the same person that I was when I came here. or that I was when I went to Scotland, or that I was when I fill in the blank. We're constantly evolving, and having these travels as milestones throughout my journey and looking back and comparing who I was in different circumstances to who I am now, I can say that I'm so grateful. And that you are listening to these words and sharing in this experience with me. And I want these stories to inspire you, to make you feel seen, heard, and understood where you are in your life, and also to challenge you to be more curious, to be more maybe open-minded or open-hearted to yourself, to the world, to the people around you, to the experiences that you will have in this life. And that this can be like a little guide for people to remember that they're not alone. I remember when I've been going through different things in my journey and found podcasts or books or Instagram accounts or just little things that made me realize other people go through stuff too. Other people are experiencing what I'm not experiencing anything that has not been felt before. And as ununique as that makes me feel, it's also so powerful to remember that other people feel this stuff too, and you're not alone in it. And with that, I'm going to wrap up this episode. I'm really grateful for you for going down memory lane with me. And thank you so much for taking the time to listen, to get to know me, and hopefully through this reflection, get to know yourself a little bit better too. If today's episode spoke to something in you, please feel free to share it with a friend who you think would also resonate, and or leave a review. It helps more than you know. I'll be back next Tuesday with another episode, and until then, open heart, open mind, stay curious.